The man in the heating vent. It was the third night since Alina's parents had left town for a medical conference in Arizona. She was 17 and more than used to being home alone. The suburban house in Lincoln, Nebraska, nestled in a cul-de-sac of nearly identical beige homes, didn't exactly scream danger zone. But something about this week had felt off. Maybe it was the odd silence after dark, broken only by the buzz of her laptop fan. Or the fact that the neighborhood seemed oddly deserted even in daylight. It was early spring, still cold at night, and she had turned the heat on in the evenings. The old vents made a low groaning sound whenever they kicked on. She told herself. That was what she kept hearing, metal expanding and contracting. Just the house breathing. On Wednesday, it started. She'd just settled in with microwave popcorn and her headphones, scrolling TikTok with the TV muted in the background. At 10:23 p.m., the power surged just for a second. The lights dimmed and came back. Not unheard of. Nebraska weather was weird in April. But then came the sound. From the living room vent, one of those long floor-level ones tucked behind the couch, came a thud. She paused, waited, pulled off one headphone, silence, then scratch. Scratch. Thump. Alina jumped up, phone clutched in hand, heart racing. A raccoon, maybe. Could something even get in there? She crouched by the vent, her breath caught in her chest. The vent grill was dusty but undisturbed. She listened, nothing. She told herself it was the heating system again. Went back to her room. But she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The next morning, something was different. Her charger was missing. Not just misplaced, gone. She checked the outlets, her nightstand, under her bed. Nothing. Annoyed, she figured maybe she left it in the living room. As she looked, she noticed something strange. The hallway closet, the one near the floor vent, was open a crack. She always closed it. She stepped closer, heart tapping a little too fast. Inside was the vacuum, a mop, and an old suitcase, but no charger. Still, something made her pause. She pulled the door wider and saw tiny flakes of drywall on the closet floor, directly under the vent that connected to the basement ductwork. She crouched to inspect. The vent looked bent, like someone had loosened it with a screwdriver. Rats, she muttered. Please, not rats. That evening, she left all the lights on. Watched movies until midnight. Kept the volume low. Around las 12:40 the furnace kicked on, so did the scratching. But this time, it was closer. Metal on metal. A dragging sound. She muted the TV, frozen in place on the couch. From the hallway, the thudding started, again followed by a soft click. She knew that sound. It was the closet door. Opening. Again. The next day. She called her friend Cody. She didn't want to sound paranoid. But she had to talk to someone. Dude, it's probably mice, Cody said, chewing into the phone. Or like a raccoon. But in the ducts? Nah, I'm serious, she hissed. Something's moving in the vents. I heard the closet door open by itself last night. Check the attic, he said. But the attic was sealed tight. No signs of anything. What was unusual though, was the basement. She hadn't gone down there in months. It was mostly unfinished. Concrete floors, laundry machines, a furnace, and an old metal workbench. That evening, well before dark, she went down with her phone flashlight. Everything looked normal. until she spotted a narrow utility hatch on the far wall. Behind it, rack of paint cans. It was a crawlspace she barely remembered. The hatch had a small, square panel. She opened it and immediately smelled something foul. Mildew, sweat, and something worse. Something human. She shined the light in and gasped. The narrow crawlspace extended maybe 10 feet into darkness, and inside it were two things that made her skin crawl. Her missing phone charger, a pile of food wrappers, a crumpled blanket. Someone had been living there. She ran upstairs, shaking, and locked every door. Then she did something she'd never done before, called the non-emergency police line. They sent a patrol car. A young officer showed up around 6 p.m., polite and skeptical. Alina showed him the crawlspace. He crouched down with his flashlight. "Well," he said slowly, "there's definitely signs someone's been down here, but no one's here now." "You live here alone?" "Only for 2 more days," she said, voice trembling. "We'll do a perimeter check. Any other entrances? Basement windows? Bulkhead?" She shook her head. "Just the vents. They're big. I swear, I heard something moving through them." He nodded, not entirely convinced. "We'll file a report. Probably some transient." "You sure you don't want someone to stay with you?" Alina said no. She didn't want to drag anyone else into it. But that night, she kept a knife under her pillow. At 2:12 a.m., her eyes snapped open. The furnace had just turned on. But this time, it wasn't the usual groan of metal. It was different. Breathing. Not hers. She sat up in bed, holding her breath. From the hallway vent came a slow, deliberate sound, metal grating, shifting. She stared at the vent near her door. It was an old-fashioned, square enoch, large enough for someone smaller, someone desperate to squeeze through. Then came the real terror. From inside the vent, a voice whispered, "I know you're awake." Alina screamed. She grabbed her phone, ran into the bathroom, and slammed the door shut. She called 911, sobbing, and tried to explain. She heard footsteps, bare feet scrape across the carpet outside the bathroom. Then a quiet thud, and silence. The cops arrived in 9 minutes. They found him in the attic, of all places. Turns out, he had moved through the vent system and up into the roof crawlspace when she called. He had a backpack, a knife, and a notebook full of drawings of her. He was a former HVAC contractor, fired 6 months earlier for erratic behavior. He had worked in her home during a furnace upgrade the year prior. Memorized the layout. Left access points open inside the duct system intentionally. He'd been living in her vents for at least 5 days. Eating scraps from the trash. Crawling through the ductwork at night. And watching her through the floor grates. Alina never spent another night alone in that house. The vents were sealed. The crawlspace filled with concrete. But sometimes, late at night, when the heater kicks on, she still listens for breathing, just in case. The shadow behind the shower curtain. When Leela's roommate took a weekend trip with her boyfriend, she was thrilled. A rare Friday night alone in the apartment meant pajamas, wine, and not having to make small talk after work. The place they rented was a modest 2-bedroom unit in an older Victorian-style house that had been divided into apartments. Creaky floors, drafty windows, and a strange layout. The bathroom, in particular, was unusually large for the building, like it had once been a bedroom itself. It was raining that night, and the white noise of it against the windows made everything feel cozy. Leela microwaved leftovers, scrolled on her phone, and eventually decided to take a long, hot shower before settling in with a true crime podcast. She turned the music up a little too loud while she showered, drowning out everything else. By the time she got out and wiped the mirror, she felt the first flicker of something strange. There was fog across the entire mirror, but one spot had a perfect, clean streak, as if someone had wiped it from the outside in a single downward motion. Layla stared at it, puzzled. Had she done that while stepping out? She didn't think so. She checked the door. Still locked. Told herself it was just her imagination. That's what people always said in these stories, right? And they never ended well. She got dressed quickly and left the bathroom light on. That night, as she curled up in bed, she kept her door open, just a crack of things she never did. Hours later, she woke up to a soft click. It was 2:17 a.m. She was sure of it, because she glanced at her phone. The sound had come from the bathroom. Like the sound of the shower curtain sliding. She lay frozen in bed, heart pounding, every muscle tense. Then she heard the drip. Not the kind of random, rhythmic drip that old plumbing makes. No, this was different. A splashy, wet sound. Like water was slowly pooling, then dropping from a height. She forced herself up, grabbed the small flashlight she kept by her bed, and crept toward the bathroom. The door was half open now. She hadn't left it like that. Leela pushed it gently. Flashlight trembling in her hand. The curtain was fully drawn. She always pushed it open after showers, to let it dry. And then, for a split second, she saw it, a shadow. Just the outline behind the curtain, unmoving. Tall. She stopped breathing. She didn't scream. She couldn't. Instead, she backed out slowly, keeping her eyes on the curtain, then ran into her room and slammed the door. She pushed her desk against it, shaking, and called 911. The dispatcher kept her on the phone until officers arrived. Leela whispered that someone was in her bathroom. She was sure of it. 2 units showed up within 5 minutes. They swept the place. No signs of forced entry. No one in the apartment. No wet footprints. Nothing. The bathroom was dry. The curtain was open. The window still locked. One of the officers was kind, but skeptical. The other seemed more amused. Probably a bad dream, he said as they left. All that true crime will do that to you. Leela didn't sleep. The next morning, she went about her day like a ghost. Her roommate wouldn't be back until Sunday night. And Leela wasn't sure if she was relieved or terrified to be alone longer. That evening, she noticed the first real proof that something wasn't right. She went to retrieve her clothes from the dryer in the basement laundry. The building had a communal laundry room, but since the other tenants were mostly elderly, she usually had it to herself. As she folded her things, she found something odd among her clothes, a sock that wasn't hers, and not just a stranger's. A damp, men's wool sock, rolled tightly into the leg of her pajama pants. She stared at it, bile rising in her throat. It had to belong to someone else in the building. But she had locked the door behind her when she used the machines. She threw the sock out and ran back upstairs, locking everything behind her. That night, just after 1 a.m., it happened again. The sound of the shower curtain sliding. Only this time, she was awake for it. She sat bolt upright in bed. The apartment was dead silent, except for that faint, unmistakable Sound metal rings dragging slowly along the curtain rod. She grabbed her phone, heart hammering, and turned on the flashlight. She waited, listening, and then she heard it. Footsteps. Not stomping, not loud. Just the soft, deliberate thud of someone walking barefoot across linoleum. Then the toilet flushed. She didn't wait. She ran out the front door barefoot, and called the cops from the sidewalk in the pouring rain. This time, the officers searched the entire building, top to bottom. One of them came out pale. "Ma'am, there's a crawlspace behind your bathroom wall. It looks like someone was using it to access the unit next door. There are signs someone's been sleeping in there. Old food wrappers, blankets, a candle." Leela was shaking uncontrollably. The police brought in building management. They sealed the access panel. A more thorough sweep found that the tenant in the neighboring unit, an older man named Frank, hadn't been seen in over a week. When they entered his apartment, they found it empty. No signs of struggle, no note, nothing. Just an open crawlspace hatch behind his bathroom, sink leading directly to a narrow wall cavity that stretched behind Leela's bathroom, large enough for a man to crouch and walk through. Worse yet, they found a small hole carved into the wall behind her shower, hidden behind the plastic liner. It looked down into her tub. From the crawlspace, he'd been watching her, possibly for weeks. Later, police recovered surveillance footage from a gas station a mile away. Frank had been spotted there 2 nights earlier, buying food and what looked like a tarp. Then he vanished. No one has seen him since. The crawlspace is now sealed with steel, and Leela moved out within 2 weeks. To this day, she can't shower with the curtain drawn. Even now, she sometimes thinks she hears the faint whisper of metal rings sliding on a rod, even when she has no shower curtain at all.